Hi everybody, I'm Conrad Zimmerman, the mustache that goes with the voice, accompanying all the gameplay videos and so forth you've seen on this channel. And I have an Ask FM page, and I would like to, on Fridays, try to get around to answering some of the questions that pile up in there. And so I thought it might be fun to just, every week, do a video and answer a group of those questions right here. So I've got a stack. Let's do it. This first one here is, how did you get a job working in video games? That comes from Dakota Lawson. Thanks, Dakota. I got lucky, and I worked hard. That's pretty much it. It was diligence, and I had people who were willing to give me a chance. Basically, I had done a little bit of writing semi-professionally, editing and contributing to a local arts and music zine thing in Phoenix, and I really enjoyed the experience. I loved writing, I loved meeting people and talking to them about music and so forth, and I wanted to do more writing, and that had sort of been festering in the back of my mind when I discovered Destructoid and found this really kind of cool news site that was clearly not beholden to anybody and had a sort of fascinating and interestingly embracing community. And then I found that they hired from within their community ranks, so I spent 6 months writing blogs in the community blogs, doing opinion pieces. I did a series of columns and just sort of built up a following in the community blogs and got involved in the community there. And then after 6 months of doing that, I approached the then editor-in-chief Nick Chester and said, hey, here's what I'm all about, this is what I've been doing, check out my work. And then within about a week after that point, I was hired. And I mean, it was that's not the story I hear from most people. It seems to be much more difficult. A lot of people I know did other writing gigs in other mediums and transferred over. A lot of writing for smaller sites for nothing, just gradually getting attention, and that wasn't the way it worked out for me. I was very lucky, and I really do appreciate Nero and Nick Chester and everybody at Destructoid having such faith in me that's allowed me to get in. Okay, another question. Favorite games to zone out and listen to something else while playing? Now, I listen to something else almost all the time when I'm playing a game, unless it's something that I'm reviewing and really need to take a critical eye to, or once it becomes familiar to me, I have a tendency to, during repetitive parts, listen to something else, put a TV show on in the background or other music. Now, to just zone out and listen to something, I don't think there's anything better than Geometry Wars 2 Retro Evolved for the Xbox 360. I can just sit and vegetate and play pacifism, the mode where you just avoid getting hit by anything, for hours on end. And I love to pair it with stuff that just makes absolutely no sense, like soundtracks to musicals, or like Pink Floyd's The Wall is really enjoyable when paired with Geometry Wars, but I guess you could do that with just about anything. So that's a really fun one for me to just zone out and do. Don't Starve is another great one, because it doesn't really, apart from some sound effects, I don't really need the audio for it that much. And Binding of Isaac is something that I can log a long, relaxed time just listening to music or podcasts or something else and just veg out to. So there's a few examples for you. Another question. What did you want to be when you were growing up? Well, it's funny because one of the things I wanted to be when I was growing up was a writer. Now, I didn't want to write journalistically, or I didn't want to be some critic. I wanted to write fiction, and I was very fortunate when I was in college. I had a creative writing professor who was immensely smart and didn't put up with bullshit, and that's always been something I needed in educators, because I just don't play well with academic systems. And she she edged me into a creative nonfiction course the second semester, and she would be furious with me when I would show up with the work completed, because it was so much better than the stuff I'd been writing for the creative writing class, and sort of convinced me that maybe I shouldn't be trying to write fiction anymore. But other things I wanted to do, I really wanted to teach. That's what I went to college with the intention of doing. I had some really great teachers in high school, and I had some really terrible teachers in high school, and I wanted to do better than the terrible ones and try to live up to the example of the great ones. And then I just saw how miserably those great teachers were, once they were no longer my teachers and I could know them in a context outside of them being my educator. They just didn't seem happy, and it kind of broke my spirit where that was concerned, and I just didn't expect to get the kind of job satisfaction out of it that I might out of working in retail, which is what I wound up doing for a long time and actually really enjoyed. So there you go. Another question. Favorite game series that started with the outgoing console generation? This is probably Dead Rising. I really love that series. I'm not typically into super campy stories, but it's always been super campy, and I think it fits better in terms of Capcom games that have campy, ridiculous concepts. I think it works better in Dead Rising than it does, say, in Resident Evil, where you get your two different sort of... Resident Evil I always thought should have been taken a little more seriously, but Dead Rising's just silly and creative and a lot of fun. And the other things I really respect, that its mission structure is time-oriented, and you have a limited amount of time to accomplish things in the day. I loved that feature in the first game, and I'm glad they stuck with it despite the criticism for the later installments, because that was just a really unique aspect of the game, a very Japanese gameplay concept, I would think. They tend to do that more over there with their time limited and strict scheduling and so forth, and it seems like it shouldn't work in what's designed to be a big open sandbox environment, but I really think it does. I thought it was super cool. So yeah, clearly it's Dead Rising. Another question. Are you a very cleanly, orderly person? No, I'm not. I've become more so over time as, I've gotten married and I've settled down, and I have a wife that has an expectation of not living in a complete pit of despair. I've got a roommate to be considerate of, so that keeps that in check, and it's gotten to a point now where, I'll start to notice dust and clean up, so I've become more that way. But in the past, I could let stuff pile up, and I would have mountains of empty Mountain Dew cans sitting around, and it's just gross. It's really kind of depressing to think about it now, and ew, just gross. But so yeah, more so now than I used to be. I still tend to get a little bit of clutter going on, but now I've got this habit of cleaning up once a week, keeps that down, and it's all sort of in check. Alright, one more question here. Any consoles or handhelds that you regret purchasing? Not really. I've not invested in a failed console, like the Atari Jaguar or something like that. I've never been a real early adopter. There have been a couple of exceptions to that. I bought the Wii at launch, and then again I bought the Wii U at launch, and I bought a 3DS at launch, and at all of those circumstances, I could have waited. I would have been okay with waiting. The Wii, I was glad to have, and it was kind of a neat thing to have right at the launch because it was so in demand and it was so difficult to get, and it was, something that we wound up playing a lot just as a consequence of it being the hip thing and having friends that wanted to play it and so forth. So that was not such a bad investment, but the Wii U has been largely unused by me. A 3DS likewise, largely unused. So those are things that I could have waited a year or so. I probably at this point would get a 2DS, if I didn't already have the 3DS that I have. Fine device, and I'm sure I'll use it more and be perfectly happy with the decision later on. But right now, yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessary to buy at launch, but I don't regret the purchase because I'm sure I'm going to get something out of it. So no, on the whole, I mean, I even have like consoles for which I only have one game. I have a Sega Saturn, and the only thing I have for it is Panzer Dragoon Saga, and I guess now a Japanese import copy of Snatcher that I'll have to mod the Saturn to play, and I'm never going to get around to that. But I bought the Saturn because I had the copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga, and I wanted to play it. So it was the only way that was going to happen. So I did it, and that was the end of that. So no regrets. Try to live a life without regret, and you know, life seems to be happier that way. So anyway, thank you very much for the questions, and if you want to ask a question, you could do it in the comments of this video if you like, and I'll probably pull some for there, or you can go to my Ask FM page, which you can see right there, ask.fm/Conrad Zimmerman, and then you can ask questions anonymously if you want to. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for gameplay stuff and more question answering and all sorts of other good things that I'll be doing down the road. And thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See ya.